We have the very special privilege of having Fiamma Nirenstein here in the Jerusalem studios of Jewish News Syndicate, JNS. Fiamma is a very prolific journalist, writing columns and news and analysis almost every day in the Il Giornale newspaper in Italy, also writes columns for JNS, and has written at least 30 books, I believe. Many of them about terrorism, anti-Semitism, Muslim extremism. Fiamma Nirenstein, welcome to the JNS studios. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Alex. It's an honor.
You've been very busy since October 7th in particular, probably covering all facets of what went into the attack on October 7th and its aftermath, not just in Israel and in Gaza, but also around the world. Tell me what caused you to really ramp up all of your writing and to dive in and fight while Israel's fighting inside the Gaza Strip?
Well, actually, I'm in a shock as everybody else here in Israel. People ask me, how am I? And I say, as everyone. That's the answer that all of us give day after day, already since such a long time, since the 7th of October. But surely, being somebody that has always been dealing in many books and in my life with the issue of anti-Semitism, what astonished me after having witnessed the slaughter, the pogroms, the Shoah that Hamas has perpetrated, what astonished me was to see the tsunami wave of anti-Semitism that has followed. After a couple of days of solidarity of Israel, I had to realize that it's not only that people likes the dead Jews, white hates the alive Jews. They hate all of them, the alive and the dead. And it has been like a trumpet playing all over the world, the signal that the anti-Semite can come out. And they did, shouting from the river to the sea, which looks apparently as something that anybody could say, from the river to the sea. Then you ask them which river and which sea. They don't even know what they're talking about. They have no idea. Show them a map and ask them where is Israel. They don't even know. What they know is that the Jews must disappear, that the Jewish the Jewish state must disappear, and with it, all the Jews all over the world.
Well, you have here this book, which is 7th of October. It's in Italian. Maybe some of it will be translated shortly into English. You know, it's pretty lengthy here. There's a lot going on. Tell me, what we would find inside this book.
Allora, this book, first of all, has a wonderful letter of a soldier that has died at war and left this letter that is extremely inspiring to his family.
And he was from an Italian family?
He was the brother of a woman that married an Italian guy, and they brought me this letter that, this guy, he was 21 when he died in Gaza, and in his normal life before going Miluim, he was taking care of difficult children. That was his life. A very, very special guy. And they brought me this poem that really, this letter, this poem, I don't know how to call it. I only know that it's very moving, it's very special. And he asked the people to be good people with very special words. And this is exactly what the Israeli are, and especially the Israeli soldiers are. Good people. Good people. Exactly the opposite of the way they are described by the delegitimizing, hateful propaganda of the enemies of Israel. If you go and have the luck of meeting the soldiers that I met, going to the south, going to the military bases. It's in my book.
Right, and you've been to the south, to the bases, and you've been reporting on that, and that's part of what this is, right?
And also on JNS, I've been reporting a couple of times about that, because that was really the things that gave me some consolation after all I had witnessed and listened to. The book is composed by this. Then there is a long introduction of 30 pages, 36 pages, that will be translated. It's a conceptual introduction about the facts that will be translated by my organization, the JCPA, the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs, where I am a member, will be translated into English. And then there are every single day diary, I will call it like this, which is an analysis of the things I have witnessed.
That were published in Italian.
That were published in Italian. Then there are a few biographies that I took from Galei Tzahal, because Galei Tzahal made a wonderful thing.
Israeli radio.
The Israeli army radio. They invited the families and the friends to write shortly what they remember, what they think, what they feel about the fallen soldiers and people that fell on the 7th of October. So I took some of them just to show sort of composition of the paintings of what we have lost. And then at the end, there is a part of the book that I wrote after the Itnatchut, when we left Gaza.
The withdrawal from Gaza.
The withdrawal from Gaza, because I was there all the time. I slept on the sand.
Right. I think a lot of people don't understand that, Israel used to have presence inside Gaza from really the 70s until 2005, and in 2005, Ariel Sharon was the prime minister, and he withdrew 8,500 Jewish residents from amidst 21 suburban communities that were throughout the Gaza Strip, and also removed the entire military presence in order to create the pilot project for an independent Palestinian entity.
Exactly. This is what I described there, the way they felt, how I saw them, what I thought. That's the last chapter of the book. But what Alex is not understood, and it's really surprising, is the fact that Gaza is not occupied. Go and listen to what Guterres, the United Nations Secretary General, said after a very few days about the slaughter that happened on the 7th of October. He said it didn't happen in a vacuum. You remember that? And then he quoted occupation, oppression. No occupation, no oppression. We had left it since 16 years, and it has been forgotten by everybody that from the other side of the barricades talks about us as occupier, genocide, imperialist, or whatever.
Right. You have here this other book that was translated to English, Double Message, Double Standard.
Yes.
And I think it relates to what you're saying because, Israel pulls out completely from the Gaza Strip and the world doesn't say, well, it's not occupied anymore. But then there are some people that say, okay, it's not occupied, but then you created an open-air prison, right? So when you're inside, it's occupied. When you go out, you've created an open-air prison, even though we've seen photos and videos of what Gaza looked like before the Israeli military operation, and it looks pretty nice. So that's what an open-air prison is, and also that people don't acknowledge that Gaza has a border with Egypt, right? It's not landlocked inside Israel. But these are in this general rule that applies only to Israel of double standards. It doesn't seem to matter, what Israel does. The international community is going to find an accusation against it, whether it goes to the right or to the left.
Exactly. This is exactly the way that modern anti-Semitism is built today. It's built on an incredible number of lies that they really occupy all the history of the Jewish people, and most of all are directed toward and against the existence itself of the State of Israel. It starts from the very beginning, denying our belonging to this land, and they don't understand that we are the only aborigine people of this land.
Indigenous people.
Indigenous, Aborigine, Indigene, whatever. And they attribute to the Palestinian history that they never had, imagining that they were here before us. And whoever will have the patience to read some history book will see that we have been here way before they have ever been mentioned, the Arabs, by the books of history, and that they have been coming through just when the Zionist pioneers were creating here places of work and civilizations and schools, and so they started coming from Syria, from Egypt, from here, from there. There was no Palestinian states anywhere. But go and ask to the people that in the streets of London, of Milano, of Paris, or in Belgium, go shouting from the river to the sea. They will tell you that we are colonizers, that we are, and this is an invention that is not new. This trend, and I've been writing about it, plenty of books, of putting the old terrible wave of anti-Semitism all on the State of Israel, goes back to the Soviet Union. Before that, you have the religious anti-Semitism, and then you have the racial anti-Semitism, okay? The religious anti-Semitism is mostly the Christian anti-Semitism. And then the racist anti-Semitism is the Nazi German anti-Semitism, fascist anti-Semitism. Then comes the communist anti-Semitism, and this goes in the direction of the State of Israel, proclaiming the State of Israel a close ally of the big enemy, the United States, and decided that the State of Israel is together with the United States, the state that is oppressing all the rest of the world, being a capitalist, colonialist. Nowadays, they also say white.
Right, even though more than half of Israel is either born or descendants of those born across the Middle East and North Africa, from Yemen, Morocco, Tunisia, Iraq, Syria, Iran. It's not white people.
See, it's simply ridiculous. But most of the accusation against the State of Israel would make you laugh. They wouldn't make you cry now that became so...
Like this genocide trial in the International Court of Justice.
Yeah, that's really terrible. But not only because of the substance of the accusation, but also because of the use of the international institutions. There is an army of international institutions that go from the United Nations to the UNESCO. The UNESCO that suddenly decides that Jerusalem has nothing to do with the Jews, and all of its story is connected to the Muslim culture. Right. It's ridiculous.
And the cave of the patriarchs of the Jewish prophets, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and their wives Sarah, Rebecca, and Leah, that is a Palestinian heritage site, right?
Exactly. I mean, whatever is part of the common sense, whatever is part of the non-culture that is given in the schools and in the university too, from the lowest to the highest level, it's all a lie. And we never put enough attention on this, We have to explain that. We have to tell all the story again. We have not to defend ourselves, but to attack them. We have to tell the Palestinians that they have nothing to do with this land. They have nothing to do with this land.
So what happens when you go around sharing this message? And I know that this book was just released in Italy. And tell me a little bit about what the reaction was to the book.
Look, it's great. The reaction is really great. It has been for a few days now. I didn't check today and yesterday, but the very first day, immediately it became #1 in Amazon, and at the presentation, people were just pushing to get into the hall of this very important museum of art, of modern art, which is called Maxi, and is in Rome. There were hundreds of people inside, and I felt also in the speeches of the people that presented the book, two of them editors of important newspaper like Il Corriere della Sera, like Il Foglio. They spoke there in favor of the book with all of their heart, repeating that the Jewish people will never allow again that could happen to them what has happened to them in the past. And then there was the president of the Union of the Communities outside, and they succeeded also in entering downstairs in the museum, and that was a pity, was a damage, because when they entered inside, the police had to stop all the crowd.
Who entered?
It was a group of pro-Palestinian people. They created on the floor of the museum flags of the Palestinians with the colors. They were shouting against my name and against Israel. And then they started shouting to the public inside, the fascist, but the public inside, part of them, when they came out, started telling them, you are the real fascist, you are fascist, you are the anti-Semite, like the anti-Semite of the past, you are fascist, communist, anti-Semite. And so this group, which was not big because they had been stopped before being able to enter all inside. Inside there were about 50 people. And then the police took me and flew me out.
Right, this isn't new to you. You were also a member of parliament when Berlusconi was the prime minister. And even now, years after being a member of parliament, when you're in Italy, you still have security detail, right?
Yes, it's a long time I have security. Actually, it is since the time of the second Intifada, because when I started telling the story, as it was of the slaughtering of children and old people on the buses and in the restaurants and in the streets, and from Italy, I remember a call from the ambassador, quote unquote, of the Palestinians in Rome, and he told me then, look, you know, if everybody looks at something and everybody sees see it red and then you see it green, this shows that you don't have a good understanding of how things are going. He was referring to the fact, which is true, that during the second Intifada, there was no sympathy for Israel, even if people were dying, even if we were attacked. Again and again, the slogan of occupation, colonialist, was the BDS that was coming up at that time, and slowly took a lot of place, and also like for the South African. How do you call it? The division between the Palestinians and
apartheid.
The apartheid states was the other big slogan that was together with the BDS becoming popular. Then this is the time when they reorganize, all the Palestinian propaganda reorganizes itself. On one side, because you remember that immediately before the second Intifada, there was all the period when everybody spoke about the possibility of getting to an agreement that would have come from the Oslo Agreement onward. This is when Arafat becomes openly a traitor of the Oslo Agreement.
Right, and you interviewed Arafat.
And I interviewed Arafat several times. And then there is the organization of the cruel attacks that in their mind would have been able, again, to defeat the Jewish state. The idea was that, even at that time, even when we have the second Intifada, they thought about it, the Palestinians thought about it, as a lethal attack to the state of Israel. It's exactly the same concept, to make life impossible in the state of Israel. And so what is really, you know, is what is really terrible and makes me sick is the fact that it's not only that we have this kind of murderous enemies that attack us all the time and all along the time, more and more with the help of Iran, but also that all the international institutions became their best friend, destroying this way, and I've written another book about that, destroying all the time what can be called the religion of our time, that is the human right idea. You know, when you become such a good friend of people that destroys the most basic concepts of human right, attacking civilians wherever they can, destroying the concept of tolerance, of freedom, and like the Palestinians have done. And you become blind in front of the fact that there is a big part of the world, starting from Iran, but going through China and Russia and so many other countries, and the Assad that has killed 300,000 people of his own. And you pretend that you do it in name of human rights. Well, the answer is simple. You have destroyed the concept itself.
And you wrote about all this in the book Jewish Lives Matter, Human Rights and Anti-Semitism.
Yes, this is translated into English.
You know, you're painting a pretty disturbing picture.
Yeah, but we are, it's disturbing on one side, but on the other side, you know, as I know, being here in Jerusalem, that we are fighting a wonderful war. I mean, a war of justice, a war that we have been obliged for a matter of self-defense, and not because of wanting to attack anybody. We didn't want to attack. We have been obliged to defend our people and our marvelous soldiers that never mind if they are a leftist or rightist, religious or secular, fight shoulder to shoulder with a courage in what has been rightly defined the most difficult war of any time, because, you know, they fight over the ground and under the ground in front of a terrain that is completely unknown, because they don't know what they will find inside.
These tunnels.
And inside the tunnels, they don't know what they will find over there. With the problem of the Khatufim, of the kidnapped,
the hostages,
those are the hostages that they face day and night with an incredible courage, having them as a polar star. They need to rescue them, to fight for them while they are fighting for their own life.
But it seems as though, you know, Israel has this understanding, has this guiding polar star, as you call it, for how to fight on the battlefield, right? Inside Gaza, people understand, Israel understands there's an enemy. These are the tools we have to fight the enemy, and they're going forward, and they will defeat Hamas. I mean, this is the assumption. The campaign is going very well. But the picture that you've painted, which takes place also outside the Gaza Strip and outside the borders of Israel, Israel for many years really has barely identified the scope of the problem, let alone how do you tackle it? How do you defeat this anti-Semitic enemy, which is really metastasized all around the world?
Well, you know, first of all, I think that we have been defending ourselves too much and not attacking as we should. I find it very proper, for instance, what has been told now to the president of Brazil when he said that this is a typical anti-Semitic trope, because to accuse Israel of being a Nazi country is a typical anti-Semitic trope, the reversing of history. Well, having said to him, you are persona non grata, that's really a very good idea. And I think that in any of these kind of situations, we should use all of our tools, which are very many. We are very strong from many, many points of view. Look at what we have done in 70 years. From nothing, we have been this marvelous country, which is number one in so many fields, in science, in technology, and in culture in general. You know, I'm whenever you have an Israeli intellectual or an Israeli singer or an Israeli pianist, you always have a personality that gives light to any situation where he is, where he intervenes. And also, we have a lot of importance in the international trade and in the international discussion about energy, which is nowadays, after what Russia is doing, one of the most important. So we must put all of our weights where they can really count, Should we accept that they discuss the song that we want to bring to a contest because they think that it is a political song? Let's ask them what they're bringing, the stuyot, the stupid songs that they are bringing there, while ours are real music. And let's put the things in their real context, the contribution that we have given, without looking at the contents of the book, because they are leftists, they are rightists, we don't mind. But the international literature is full of names of important Israeli writers, for instance. So let's put all of our importance on and let's repeat and repeat our true story. We have to distribute to all the schools, to all the students everywhere, the basic of the fact that we are the legitimate, and I underline the word legitimate because they all the time, and it's not a matter of chance, accuse us of illegitimate behavior in this or in that situation. We have to put down there to describe, to tell the story of our most legitimate presence in the state of Israel as our own state, the state of the Jewish people, where we live as we want, as we can, where we defend ourselves, and we have the best youth in the world. You know how many people dream of having a youth like ours, youth that can create, can imagine.
First of all, we have children. I mean, that's by itself.
That's the best of all the richness that the world dreams to, the Western world dreams to have, that they don't have anymore because they became such a confused and selfish.
Right, that they don't have children. They're not reproducing to the even basic reproduction rate for society. And not only do we have children, but we also raise our children with tremendous purpose. And that's why you see that when October 7th happened, that not only did we have 100% of our reserves answer the call to go into Gaza, but we actually had 120% response where people that didn't get called up were literally calling their commanders and begging to be able to get into the fight.
You know, one of these boys that was in India when all the things exploded, I interviewed him, and he told me the story. He ran to the airport right away to try to find a flight back from the trip that he was taking to come and fight. And then he also told me, he told me, my grandfather was a survivor of the Holocaust. My father fought the 73 war, and I'm here as the one that will say, my grandfather said never again after the war. My father said never again after the 73 war. I am never again. I will really be never again. So we don't give it to anybody. We ourselves, our never again.
So even though the situation around the world towards Israel is bad, anti-Semitism is rampant.
Well, they came out, now we see them and we can fight them, and we must find the way to fight them, thing after thing, moment after moment when they come up. Let's say now, for instance, in the French parliament, the left-wing group saying in the parliament that the Israeli can participate in the Olympiads if they go without their flag and without their hymn. Did you hear about that? Okay, so now we have to give it very tough answer, for instance. That's my thought, and maybe nobody will agree with that. But what I think is that the French Parliament must receive from Israel a clear message. We are going with our hymn and with
our
our
national
flags,
anthem and our flag.
Anthems. Yes.
So ultimately, even though the situation is tough, you remain an optimist?
I'm more than an optimist. I am in love with this country, with its soldiers, and with whatever it is. I think that it is the only Western countries that stayed Westerner as far as freedom and democracy is concerned.
Fiamma Nirenstein, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.